Hello and welcome. In this video we're going to talk about changing the strings on a guitar, some preventative maintenance, and some upkeep. And I've got a friend of mine's guitar here that he wanted me to work on, and I'll show you what I did to it, how to clean it and change the strings. This was kind of an afterthought. I should have done this before I took the strings off of it, but got to thinking about it. I thought it might be something that would be helpful to you. The very first thing I do is take the strings off the guitar. So to do that, you're going to need a string winder, and here's a pretty much standard one. And the only thing you need to watch here when you take the strings off, there's three things. You need to make sure you're turning it the right way. In other words, you're releasing the tension because you don't want it to break and hit you. Okay, so then the other things, realize that it's under tension, that when it comes off it could hit you in the face. Also, the ends of those strings are sharp, so don't prick your finger. And if you've been around, played a while, you've probably already done that. Okay, so as I release them, a lot of times I'll just lay my hand on top of the strings to keep them. I'll release the tension, which normally is counterclockwise with the string winder. I'll go to this end, release the string off of here, take it off, and then discard them. So that's the way I take them off. That's the way I get the strings off. Okay, the next thing we'll talk about, which is real easy, is to clean the guitar. Now this is just going to be a suggestion. This is what I do with my guitar, so I'm going to show you the things I have. And this may sound silly, but I use Windex. And I have a top-end Zum guitar, probably about a $7,000 guitar that I've used this on for years. I feel comfortable doing it. If you don't want to do that, then clean it however whatever you feel comfortable with. Just use a simple cotton cloth, and in this case, I just use simply a sock. That's a good cloth to use, and that's how I normally spray the guitar down, clean it. This guitar had probably set up for about a year and was filthy, just literally filthy. Okay. The next thing that I use, which is recommended, I believe, on the Zum website, and this is not product endorsements, but this is just what I'm using. It's called Mother's Mag and Aluminum Polish. You can get this at an auto parts store. And this, when you put it on the polished parts, the polished aluminum, there's a lot of oxidation here from like your hands, the oils in your hands and the salts. That rag will turn will be black, literally black. Just keep polishing that till it comes clear, and this will start shining. This is really a good product to use. Alright, then the next thing, I'll normally oil up the rollers and the bridge mechanism here. And again, I think this is recommended on the Zum website. Simply a 3-in-1 oil. And what you want to do here, and I found it on this guitar, somebody used like a heavy grease, and it actually it gets clogged up, and it attracts dust and dirt and lint. So you don't want to use a heavy oil or grease. So anyhow, this is a 3-in-1 oil. Again, I bought this at an auto parts store. Okay, now I'm going to show you something on this end that you might think about. Now let's look at the headstock here and the rollers. I'm going to show you a couple of things that I do here. The first one is I'll normally check the keys, and this is a flathead screwdriver on top. I'll tighten those. This guitar was in good shape, but if these keys are loose, tighten that with that flathead screw. The second thing is actually how the key mounts to this headstock. On my Zum it's a 10mm, but on this one it happened to be a 12. So you need a box end wrench. You can simply take the nut, which is inside here, and tighten it if these keys are loose. That's another good thing to do while you got the strings off, obviously. So that's another thing I do. Also, while you have the strings off, this is the time to clean in here. And I'll show you something I do here, which is, again, kind of just something I've done over the years. Simply take a Q-tip, and that gets in here real easy, gets in between these keys, and you don't have to worry about marring this polish. Okay, The next thing I'm going to show you is a little more involved, and I'm talking about the rollers here on your guitar. This is kind of like rotating the tires on your vehicle. If you think about it, these strings lie on top of these rollers, and they move just a very little bit, so that's being worn the same place over and over and over. So what I do, and I did on this guitar, is I simply remove this roller assembly. And the only thing you need to be careful here is, well, two things. If these are gauged, in other words, like if this 10th string is wider than this first string, then you need to remember the order that you took them off in. Second thing is that I just use a flathead screwdriver. I'm going to pry this out. It has a bar with the rollers. Alright, what we're going to do now is simply remove this roller system. Just be careful not to mar the neck or the fretboard. I'm just using a Phillips, and I'm going right here, just kind of lifting it up. You see that? I mean, it's not rocket science, and then I'm just going to keep prying, get this out. And what I did on this guitar, which I've already cleaned it, I simply take all the rollers off. Again, if they're not gauged, which these aren't, they just simply slide off. And like I told you on the on this guitar, they had used like a heavy grease. This whole bar was just corroded, and so I simply took the polish, cleaned this shaft off real good, and I also took each individual roller, cleaned it, polished it. I cooked a Q-tip, cleaned this part here real good. Okay, then we just reassemble. Just since they're not gauged, they're all the same exact, I simply put them back on the shaft. And again, another thought here is that if you wanted to rotate these, like put the 10th one on the first to make it wear different, that wouldn't be a bad idea. And then we'll just reinstall this, which is a little tricky, but not anything you can't do. So we get all 10 of them on. Kind of lay this up here like this. Start spacing them out. Like this, just kind of line them up. I normally go like this, kind of line them up like that. And each guitar is different. Like I said, this is totally different from my Zum. This is a BMI guitar. So then just kind of roll them in, lay that in, click it in. Okay, then I simply look at the shaft, and this is pretty good, but if it's not centered or if it's not even, you can simply tap that shaft. It'll move real easy, either end of it. Kind of center that up. Okay, so after we have our rollers reinstalled, I simply take the 3-in-1 oil, just put a light application between each roller, which I've already done on this guitar when I cleaned it originally. Okay, then simply just take them and roll them like that, you know, to get the oil down, make it work down. Okay, so while we have the oil, we'll go to the bridge end, and I'll show you what to do down there also. Okay, now we'll talk about the bridge end. While we're oiling, I simply do two things down here. I take the Q-tips we had a while ago, we talked about, and I'll clean between these rollers. And again, it's something that's real, you know, it's not going to mar the finish. And again, what I'm doing here is that I found on a lot of guitars that they've used the wrong type oil or grease, and we've got a buildup. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's what happens. So Q-tips are a real easy way to do that. It's a real easy way to get in between these fingers or these rollers. And again, you see the buildup. And then I take my 3-in-1 oil, which we talked about a while ago. Again, not a product endorsement, but it just works real well. It's a light oil. Go between each roller, you know, whatever you want to call these fingers, bridge assembly. And then I just give that a light application. And then after a while, when we get our strings on and start doing our pedals and knee levers, these fingers will start moving, and that'll apply that on down. Okay, another thing we're going to do here while we're on this end of the guitar is talk about adjusting this pickup. Okay, while we're on this end of the guitar, I'll show you an easy way to gauge the height of your pickup. This is something I heard Buddy Emmons talking about one time. You simply take a quarter, that's going to be the height. Lay that on that pickup, put your strings on, and that should clear. In other words, the string shouldn't touch that quarter. The way you adjust the height is simply with these screws right here, these Phillips head screws. That adjusts that pickup up and down. Okay, so now let's, I'm not going to talk through stringing the whole guitar up because that'd be, there's no sense in that. But I will show you how to do one string, and that'll be duplicated, for the rest of the 9. So let me get my strings and show you the tools we need for that. Alright, now we'll go ahead and show you how to put the strings on. And an annotation later, if you want to check it out, I'll show you products and gear that I use. So, I'm not going to get into what type of strings I'm using. But what we're going to do on this end, on the bridge end, with the finger, we get our string out, our first string. Simply uncoil that string. Be careful, again, it's under tension, so don't poke yourself in the eye with it. On this particular guitar, which is different than mine, the ball end of that string will hook in here on this first finger. So it's kind of tricky, and as you get older it gets a little harder to see that, but anyhow, the ball end hooks in the finger, and you can see that it's applied. Now I'll show you how to judge the length, how long we want this string on the key end. Alright, now we're going to look at this end, the key end, and see how to judge the length of the string, what we need. And obviously you don't need the whole string, so I guess what I'm saying is I'm going to show you a good way to judge where to cut these strings off. Okay, we've applied the first string, so this is a string rafter right now. What I simply do, that string is going to this key right here. To judge the distance on where I want to cut them off, I go 2 keys past. In other words, I go to the 3rd key to cut it. I simply grab that string right there, and I get my wire cutters and clip it right there. And that would be for the first string. Now let me show you while we're here. Obviously, if you go down to the 5th key, you don't have 2 keys past it. There you have to kind of judge it. What I do is I normally go 2 inches past that. In other words, if I was applying the 5th string, I would go probably 2 inches past that, which is about the distance of 2 keys. In other words, I'd hold it right here, clip that string off. Then that would go for the 5th string. So let's talk back now about the first string. Okay, I said I go 2 keys past and cut it, so that's what I'm going to do right now. I normally hold that string to keep it from flying off. Again, you don't want to poke yourself in the eye or somebody with you. Okay, then we turn the key around, get the hole lined up. The thing you want to be careful here now is on a guitar, when you run this string in through the hole, you don't want it to mar this finish. So I run it through just where I can see it come out the other side. Then I take and crimp that string like that. Then I hold up a little tension on it. Go ahead and put it in the roller. Start winding that clockwise. Okay, and the way I do this also to keep from cut out on your string breakage is make sure you don't overlap these windings on this key. In other words, they're going to be uniform. They're going to feed that way. And you simply wind that string up. And as you're doing this, you can check your roller. Make sure your roller, because I've got tension on it right here with this hand, make sure that roller's moving freely. This guitar has some good keys on it, so it's not an issue with this guitar. Okay, and I just kind of get it tight. I'm not trying to tune it up right now. And then, like I said, on this end, make sure when you put the string through the key that it's not going to come back around and mar this finish. Watch this roller as you're doing the tension. The length is normally 2 keys past the key you're going to. I was applying the first string, so I went to the 3rd key, cut that string off. If I was doing the 5th string, I would simply go out about 2 inches past that, cut it. Alright, I hope this video was helpful and that you've got some good information off of it. If you do on the video, just click the like and subscribe there. Also, there will be a listing of the products that I used on the video, and if there's any questions. And again, those are just suggestions. Those are things I've used for years and years, and they've worked for me. And like I said, I wish you could have seen this guitar before I started. It was in pretty bad shape, and it turned out really well.